Hello, and welcome back to another hacking guide for Cyberpunk 2077. This guide video will cover the basics and fundamental mechanics of hacking in Cyberpunk. So if you've seen my previous video or already have an understanding of how hacking works, then I would recommend skipping this one and coming back next week for my advanced guide on hacking, which will take a deeper dive into optimizing your hacks using the boss technique, as I've called it. But for those of you who just want an overview of the basics for now, let's jump into the 2019 deep dive video to get a sense of how hacking works. Looking at the big picture, hacking involves trying to find and input codes in the main and side objectives using the codes listed in the table. To complete an objective, you have to input the objective's codes in order from start to finish using the codes in the table. In a hack, you are only allowed to input 6 codes total from the table following a specific pattern. So it is likely that you will only be able to complete some of the objectives. Please note that you have to complete the basic access objective listed at the top in order to pass the hack and get any benefit from completing the side objectives. The way the input pattern works is that you start by clicking a code in the first row, and then you have to pick a code from the column you selected your first code from. So as you can see, because the player chooses 1C in the top row, they now must choose between the codes in the second or the last vertical column. After they choose a code from this column, they then have to pick a code from the corresponding row. This row column pattern repeats for all 6 inputs, going row, column, row, column, row, column. Now, as you go along this row column pattern, your goal should be to complete as many objectives as possible by selecting codes that match with the objectives. You don't have to complete the objectives in any particular order. You just have to ensure that you complete the main objective for basic access. As we see in the video, after you click on the first code, then all the objectives that start with that code are highlighted. In this case, the player chose 1C. And so the 1C in basic access and camera leg side objective became highlighted. Note that the 1C codes in the officer tracing and program prototype side objectives are not highlighted, as objects must be completed from start to finish in their entirety. Now for the second input, the player can't complete the basic access objective because there is no BD code in the last column. However, there is an E9 code which lets the player complete the camera leg objective. Note that after the player chooses the E9 code, that the 1C of basic access objective is no longer highlighted. This means that the player has to restart the main objective and complete it in its entirety from start to finish. Continuing on with this hack, the player then chooses BD from the first column, which starts officer tracing and encrypted data. But then the player picks 55 from the fourth row, which gives them their second code in officer tracing exclusively, stopping their progression and restarting it in encrypted data. They follow up their 55 with 1C in the third column to complete officer tracing. Now notice that because the basic access string starts with 1C, the player now only has to select BD to complete the basic access objective. It is fortunate that there is a BD in this column, since if they didn't complete the basic access string, then they would have failed the hack altogether and wouldn't get any of the benefits from completing the side objectives. I was just finishing up editing and realized I totally forgot to film an outro, so here I am in my closing close. Anyways, I hope this basic overview of hacking has helped prepare you for your first hacks in Cyberpunk 2077. If you are interested in learning more about how to optimize your hacks so that you complete the best side objectives, I recommend either checking out my previous video here, if I can figure out how to link the thing, or you can subscribe and I will be finishing up my expert guide sometime next week. If you have questions, please leave a comment down below, as I'm happy to help out. Or if you thought this video was shit, please roast me down in the comment section. In either case, thanks for watching and have a good one.